Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com. So, whether you think it's right or wrong, Manny Pacquiao has lost his title to Timothy Bradley. So where does he go from here? What should he do? The answer might be surprising. I understand that he has a rematch clause in the contract where he would have an opportunity to fight Timothy Bradley to get back the WBO title, right? But let's think outside the box. Which is going to make him more money? Fighting Timothy Bradley or fighting Floyd Mayweather next? You tell me. Which is going to help his legacy more? Fighting Timothy Bradley or fighting Floyd Mayweather next? In fact, isn't the toughest part of fighting Manny Pacquiao the first 6 rounds of the fight? Right? Pacquiao throws a very tight straight left. It's tight. Doesn't come in on a loop. It's so tight that when you look on film, often his opponent has a guard up, but the punch still gets in. And Pacquiao is so fast, it's very hard to figure out the angles. But once you figure out the angles, once you right the ship, as Juan Manuel Marquez knows, once you get out of the first, second, and third rounds, isn't Manny Pacquiao more mortal? Well, let me just say, just in terms of a risk reward, who for him is the more dangerous fighter to fight right now? Timothy Bradley, on 2 of the 3 judges' scorecards, just won 5 of the last 6 rounds of their head-to-head matchup. Bradley has already survived the early rounds, right? Bradley has already figured out the angles. Those 2 or 3 early rounds where Pacquiao's speed is so overwhelming that a Miguel Cotto or a Juan Manuel Marquez might have hit the canvas in the past. Timothy Bradley is already by those. You'll notice in the later rounds, Bradley changes his strategy a little bit, starts sticking and moving, starts shooting a jab, is working angles. Right? Isn't there the fear that the Bradley rematch picks up where this fight left off? Keep in mind, Jerry Roth, who scored the fight for Pacquiao, had him losing the last 3 rounds. So given the risk, wouldn't it be better to fight Floyd Mayweather next? Because Mayweather would have to go through the early part of the fight against Manny Pacquiao, right? Mayweather would have to figure out Pacquiao's angles for the first time. He wouldn't be where Timothy Bradley is right now, knowing exactly how to deal with Manny Pacquiao, at least knowing Pacquiao's speed, knowing exactly what it's like to be in the ring with Manny Pacquiao. Now, let me make a few points. I know many of you are going to say, gee, Dwyer, you're saying Pacquiao should give up his titles. At a certain level of the game, do titles matter? Do you really care what title Chad Dawson and Andre Ward are fighting for? In fact, that fight, don't you already know whether or not they put a title at stake in the fight? That you're looking at 2 fighters toward the very top of the game. That you're looking at the best at 168 against the best at 175. Did you really care what title was at stake? The 3rd Bo Holyfield fight? If titles are so important, and Manny Pacquiao wants a title at 147, given that he is such a huge draw, couldn't he simply fight Paulie Malignaggi at 147 to get a title at 147? Let me go one step further. Doesn't Floyd Mayweather right now have a title at 154? Couldn't those guys agree to fight at 147 for the 154 title? In fact, isn't Manny Pacquiao a former 154 title holder? Didn't he come into this fight weighing more than Timothy Bradley at 147? Would it be that hard for Manny Pacquiao to fight Floyd at 150 if they both decided to fight at the catch weight? Not that I like catch weights, I'm just saying. If Manny wants a title at stake, if he fights Floyd, you could literally have a title at stake in a higher weight class, right? And so my point to you is simply this. Number one, I don't believe it's as financially advantageous for Manny to fight Timothy Bradley again as it is to fight Floyd Mayweather. Number two, in the ring, because Timothy Bradley has already survived the early rounds against Manny Pacquiao and seems to have solved the puzzle in the later rounds, right? None of the three judges had Pacquiao winning a majority of the last 6 rounds of the fight, right? Even Jerry Roth, who scored the fight for Pacquiao, had Bradley winning 4 to 6. I would argue that in the ring, because of his knowledge base in fighting Pacquiao, Timothy Bradley at this stage is a more dangerous opponent than Floyd Mayweather would be. Keep in mind, Mayweather is a notoriously slow starter. Look at the opening rounds of Mayweather against another fast lefty, right? And Pacquiao is a fast lefty. Look at Mayweather against Zab Judah. You're going to see Mayweather is so out of his element early in that fight. He can't handle Judah's speed. At one point he gets hit and his glove touches the canvas, right? If you may recall, Sugar Shane Mosley, a righty, was fighting Mayweather and hurt him in the early rounds. Take a look at the early rounds against Ricky Hatton. You'll see those are Hatton's best rounds. Mayweather's a slow starter. If Manny Pacquiao were to fight Mayweather, in addition to making more money than he would make against Timothy Bradley, in those early rounds, Mayweather, a counterpuncher who is a master at figuring out angles, would have to spend at least 2 or 3 rounds figuring out Manny Pacquiao's angles, right? Mayweather's not going to knock you out in the first round. That's not his game. It's never been his game. And so, if I'm Manny Pacquiao, who do I want to fight? The guy who has already fought me, who has already won several rounds in a row against me according to the judges' scorecards in the last fight? Or do I want to fight the bigger name who doesn't know me, who's a slow starter, who I might actually be able to get a jump on in the fight, right? Maybe I get to a lead, 2-round lead, 3-round lead. Maybe the fans watching that fight then say, wow, this is an interesting fight. And maybe I can capitalize on the public sympathy I've engendered by, according to the public, getting robbed against Timothy Bradley. Let me go one step further. Let's talk about the money, right? You know what? Floyd Mayweather at one point offered Manny Pacquiao $40 million for the fight. If I'm Manny Pacquiao, why not say to Floyd, you know what? Give me the 40 mil. Let me just say this. If he makes 35 mil against Timothy Bradley, that's far riskier than making the 40 mil against Floyd Mayweather. If he loses the next fight, think about the repercussions. If he loses to Timothy Bradley, there'll be some in the press who will say, Timothy Bradley owns him. Right? Timothy Bradley beat him twice. This is no longer about Floyd and Manny. It becomes Floyd, Manny, and Timothy Bradley. It might be that already. Whereas if Manny fights Floyd Mayweather and loses to Mayweather, the narrative might be a bit different. The narrative might be, gee, he lost to the best. He lost to the standard bearer. That might be less of a hit on Manny Pacquiao's legacy than losing a rematch to Timothy Bradley. Let's go one step further. There's a lot of intrigue right now about Floyd Mayweather. Let's face it, Floyd is unavailable right now. When he becomes available, could you imagine the hype? Could you imagine the press if Floyd and Manny wait to fight until next May? There'd be an open question on exactly what Floyd Mayweather is bringing into the ring. Right? The idea would be that Mayweather had one of his tougher fights against Miguel Cotto in the last fight, if you go by public sentiment, if you go by the fact that Mayweather's face was a little bit puffed up after that fight. And then the argument would be that we don't know whether Mayweather left his game in the county detention center or whether Mayweather is still Mayweather if they were to fight next May. Sometimes in boxing, you make money by keeping the fighters waiting. Not only that, by next May, that fight would be at a fever pitch. Right now, you have a group saying Manny was ripped off. Manny won that fight. So next year, if he were to fight Floyd next May, and understand the reason I'm picking May is Cinco de Mayo weekend, Kentucky Derby weekend, is one of the best, biggest pay-per-view weekends all year. That's when Floyd this year fought Miguel Cotto. That's when Oscar De La Hoya used to fight, right? If Manny fights Floyd next May, that's a fight for the ages. The questions would be all over the place. It would almost be like Leonard Hagler, where people forget now, but at the time, people were asking, Ray Leonard hasn't fought in over a year. Is Ray Leonard still Ray Leonard? Here we would be saying, wow, we saw Manny Pacquiao against Timothy Bradley. Floyd has been unavailable. If they fight again next year, I believe at that point, the fight would be at a fever pitch. Not only that, but no one would have any excuses. Understand, if Manny were to fight Floyd later this year, and if Floyd were to lose that fight, the argument would be, hey, you caught Floyd right after he left jail. He wasn't ready. It would be like fighting Tyson, right after Tyson left prison. You remember the Tyson-Peter McNeely fight, right? We want this fight to be more of a classic than that. We want no excuses. We want the fighters to have full and complete opportunities to train, to have a training camp. Not only that, to sell the fight, right? The pre-fight build-up is a big part of these fights. We want to see the pre-fight press conferences. We want to see the joint interviews. We want them to tour around the country as you do before a big fight. Let's see Manny and Floyd in New York. Let's see Manny and Floyd in Philly, Chicago, Los Angeles. Right? Let's see them on conference calls. Let's give the experts, Emmanuel Stewart, Max Kellerman, Gus Johnson, Al Bernstein, Antonio Tarver, Larry Merchant. Let's give all of these pundits an opportunity to be heard. Okay, so my point to the Manny Pacquiao people is simply this. Manny, make more money. Fight for a bigger legacy. Give the fans what they want. You're 33, Floyd is 35. Time stops for no one. Now is the time to go for the brass ring. Many fans aren't going to hold the Timothy Bradley loss against you because many fans believe you won that fight. Right? And so I believe right now, if I were Manny Pacquiao, I would say to Timothy Bradley, congratulations, you are the WBO champion. I'd like to fight you again, but first, I have bigger fish to fry. Let me go one step further. Timothy Bradley, would probably be into it because Bradley has an injured leg. He won't be able to train for a long time. Also, a lot of the attention's going to be on Bradley, right? If Bradley shows up and is ringside, if he plays it 1970 style, he shows up ringside. Too bad we don't have a Howard Cosell to interview him during the fight, but he shows up ringside. Understand, if Manny beats Floyd, then the obvious rematch is the Manny-Timothy Bradley rematch at that stage. And if Floyd beats Manny, then of course you have the Floyd Mayweather, Timothy Bradley, the men who beat Manny Pacquiao matchup. So Manny, don't worry about getting 50% from Floyd Mayweather at this point. Understand that $40 million is more than you would make in a rematch against Timothy Bradley, and from a boxing perspective, fighting Floyd might actually be easier than fighting Timothy Bradley because Timothy Bradley did awfully well against you. Bradley's best part of the last fight was in the latter part of the fight. And all I'm saying is, understand, that was Bradley on one leg. Bradley is a dangerous opponent. I'm sure Manny knows Bradley's a dangerous opponent. If I were him, I would prefer to fight Floyd Mayweather next from a boxing perspective, even if the money is the same as a Bradley fight. I would prefer to fight Floyd Mayweather because Floyd doesn't know your angles yet. And more importantly, Floyd Mayweather is viewed as the more historical fighter. There's more glory to gain. YouTube Nation, let me know what you think. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com and theboxinggame.blogspot.com. Thanks for watching.